The beauty of what this is, or you can do, is you can learn this. Video creation is a learnable skill. You have the capacity, capability, and understanding. It takes a little work. You're going to have to put in some time, some effort, put in the reps, but this is a learnable skill. Video creation is not necessarily a talent. Now, there are talented video creators, but that's not to say that if you don't have the talent or you're less talented, that you can't make great content. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are and wherever you're watching from. My name is Matt Pierce, host of Visual Lounge, and if you're watching the video, you may notice something different, and if you're listening, you might hear something different. I'm actually in the TechSmith studio. Now, here's the thing. It's super early in the morning. I had to come early because of car situation, and I thought, well, let's record a podcast episode because it's been a while since it's just been me, and I want to share some insights, some thoughts, but I just want to call out that some things are a little different this morning. And first of all, a couple things I think are worth mentioning here is, one, I am so grateful for everybody that's been listening, tuning in, downloading, all that stuff. Really does mean a lot. And I do hope it really helps you. We say that, you probably hear that in every podcast or every show or whatever you're watching, but the reality is I really mean that. So today what I want to talk about is we've had some fantastic guests lately, just imparting so much wisdom about video creation, about the things that they've learned. And I want to just take a second for us to reflect on that. I've been reflecting a lot about the last 2-3 years of interviewing, talking to people, and thinking about like, what have I learned? And am I learning what I want to learn from interviewing these folks? And yes, I have, and I hope you are as well. But I think the thing that's really interesting to me is that there's all of these different perspectives, but one of the things that's almost sort of universal is that they come back to these fundamentals and that these basics, right? That things that you just need to do. Like one of them is that you just need to start. Everyone who's making video has to start making video. You just need to get going. You need to try it. You need to do it. Almost everyone says like, oh, you just got to push the button, right? And now I believe that that's true, and I've seen that to be true for people, that they start, and some people are, fast learners, and that the learning curve is to like, oh my gosh, they're off making amazing things without hardly any effort. For others, it takes a long time. Now, some of that's kind of how much are you doing? What's the repetitive nature of it? Like, are you doing a lot? Are you doing a little? If you're doing one a month, it's going to be hard to get good fast. If you're doing one a day, you're going to get fast pretty quickly. So that's kind of a universal truth. So some of the other universal truths are that, especially when it comes to learning content, you need to be starting to think about like, how do I dissect this into a way that actually is going to make sense from paper to visual, and how do I write that out? And we often talk about scripting, we talk about outlining, we talk about whatever, but when you go off the cuff, there's a certain kind of, it's lazy. I'm going to call it out, and I'm being lazy right now, going off the cuff, so I'm not calling you lazy, I'm speaking more of myself. But I think there's something about it, right? That one, there is a freeness to being able to speak to a subject because you are an expert. Now that's required that you put in time. Why? By no means do I consider myself an expert. I put in a lot of time. 2 years, 210 plus episodes definitely makes a difference in knowing what to talk about when you camera turns on. I think the other thing is when you outline it though, and when you put structure to it, it allows you to shape it in a different way. And while I am lazy, you don't have to be. And almost every guest I talk about talks about knowing and understanding that. And it might not be that you're outlining the subject. It might be that you know the goal. It might be that you know the outcome that you're trying to achieve, and that everything you do should be focusing on that. So that's, I think, just another one of those kind of fundamental things that we hear over and over. More lately, I think the other thing is the attention span. Look, I've said this in other places, I'll say it here. Attention spans are not changing. People do not have the attention span of a goldfish. Let's call that out. That's not good data. But what they do have is a lot of competing interests. When you look at how good TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts is at sucking people in, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's good at pulling people in, then you've got that competition. They're competing reading Facebook, or they're reading the news, or they're doing, Wordle, or whatever it might be that's interesting them. That's all competition. They also have a family probably, whether it's a significant other, kids, they got their dog, their cat, their mouse, or whatever it is. They've got other competing interests that you're competing with. Even if you're saying, this is mandatory training, you have to take this. The attention span, it's not that it's short, it's that it's got 20 other things that it's got to focus on. And whatever you're doing needs to compensate or overcome that, or somehow, by sheer force of will, say, look, you need to put that aside for a few minutes and focus here. Working with people in my family who have ADHD and other kind of attention issues, I noticed that there's certain things I've got to do to help them to focus. My daughter in particular was focusing on some training that she had to do. She was reading a lot of text. She was not being able to focus, so we did some things. Like we were able to introduce her to the idea of like, hey, you can actually play this as audio. Now, when you're creating your video, though, you got to be thinking about that, not only that attention span, but if you're consuming this, or your audience is consuming this, I should say, in a space where it is optional, the time from start to keep them interested is extremely short. And again, it's not attention span, it's the interest. We have to be able to build the interest in our audience. So that 5 seconds that at the beginning of YouTube, you see, if you watch the retention graph, you'll see the first 5 seconds, there's a drop. Why? Because people have already made a judgment call about what you're about to tell them and if it's for them. So what do we do? Well, there's lots of great advice out there. I've seen some really great things coming out from people talking about this lately. But like, look, what's the most important thing that you're going to give them in 5 seconds? What's something that's going to catch their interest or cause them to ask questions? Or what's going to hook them and allow them to say like, I want to know the outcome. Think of a great example of this, and this is very much a longer form version of this, but think about Serial, the podcast. If you haven't listened to it, fantastic crime drama podcast, hooking things in, but it always leaves you with the question. It always wants you to, you're like, I got to resolve this, because your brain is saying, I need to figure this out. I can't be left, don't leave me hanging here, guys. I need to know. And in some ways, our videos should do this similar thing. We want to help our audience to focus in. So that universal truth as well is we got to hook them. We got to find ways and strategies to grab that interest. Now, in some ways, I don't think we have to do this complicated storytelling. I don't think we have to give them a mystery. But I do think sometimes there is value in just telling them straight up, hey, this is required. Here's how it's going to help you. Move on. Or, you may have other more interesting creative ways that you want to go about it. But I think you need to set that up in a way that is going to cause them to pay attention. And then, once you get them past that 5 seconds, you've got to keep them there. Keep them thinking, keep them going, keep them interested. There's a great book, Brain Rules, Dr. John Medina, and one of the things he talks about is lectures. And lectures are not video, it's different, but I think the kind of ideas apply. I'm not going to go through all the details. If you want to read about it, you can go find it on his website. You can find it on his book. However, what he talked about is in his lectures, he knows about every 10 minutes, he has to rehook someone. So they're talking about a lecture, then maybe he uses a story, maybe he uses a joke, maybe he uses whatever technique to re-engage his audience. Now, I'm not advocating we're going to go out and do hour-long videos, but what I do think is as you're going through your video, you may need to rehook them. You're like, okay, here's the upfront stuff. We got you, and then you're hitting the next thing. You might just want to find a way to recatch their interest. Maybe that's a recap. Maybe that's giving them something new to ponder about or think about. Maybe it's another question. Again, you gotta break this down however it's going to work for you and your audience. I think the next universal truth I'll cover, and we'll keep today pretty short, is the audience that you're talking to really matters. And if you aren't sure of who you're talking to, internal, external, doesn't matter, that makes it hard. Now, I can speak from experience that I know that this is extremely challenging. You've probably noticed over the last year, the Visual Lounge has focused more and more on video creation, more on video creators, more on, still on learning and development, but less on things like workplace communications, less on just pure imagery, although we do some of that. And there's been some great examples of that recently. But we continue to narrow our focus because we know that allows you as a listener to really understand and know what we're about. That way, in the morning, when you're making a decision about what you're going to listen to or what you're going to watch, it makes it clear, do I want to learn about video right now? And if not, you can decide something else. But if you're like, yeah, I need to know more about this topic, then you can do that, right? So knowing your audience allows you to focus in on them. It also allows them to focus in on you. And that is really powerful. And that's a niche, right? You'll hear our YouTube creator friends talk about the niche. You got to niche down. You got to focus in. And that's so important. Now, if you take that out kind of to the next step, when you're looking across like a search landscape of YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, just Google in general, there's this landscape of things, and Google needs to know what you're about. Just like your audience needs to know what you're about, and you need to know what you're about, Google wants to know, like, hey, why am I serving this up in any kind of context? And should I be? And if not, if it's not going to be something people want or are looking for under that search term, guess what? They're not going to serve you up. But if Google's like, I don't know how to classify this video, is it a tutorial? And what is a tutorial about? Now, that's one on a singular level, but then you apply that to a channel or to a group of videos, and all of a sudden you come into, if you're making a video about, let's say, tutorials for Camtasia, and then you go on that same channel and you're making tutorials about caring for plants, and then you're doing another one about geography of the world. YouTube, in particular, Google, TikTok is going to be like, what the heck? What are we here about? Why are we here? What are we talking about? We don't know, so we're not going to serve it up because we can't predict, who your audience is. We can't serve this to them. And so as you get that niche, you get that focus, you understand your audience, that's going to allow you to be seen better. Now, inside of an organization, a little bit different, right? Because obviously you got a wide span of kind of needs to cover, whether it's from HR, soft type skills, to tutorials, to health and safety, to whatever it might be. You can serve those up. You're going to serve those up probably in a learning management system or on a web page of some type. And of course, you can organize them, but you're still going to categorize them, right? You're going to say like, okay, soft skills go here, health and safety training goes over here. And you're not going to usually put those together. So that way, if someone's looking for them, they can find them. Now, you might bundle them in different ways, have different options, like here's just organized by topic. Here's one that's organized by job function. Here's one that's organized by, orientation. And that's the way you can do that. But you still need to understand your audience in those settings, because what's going to apply to that person? So, you're working in let's say a corporate environment, a bank, and there's probably rules around, safe handling of finance kind of stuff, information, personal, protective information, or protected information, right? And so does someone who is, say, a frontline cashier, teller at the bank, need to know the same things as maybe the auditor? Probably, right? They probably have an overlap. But if there's things that the auditor needs to know that the teller probably does not. So you get the picture, though. The audience is really, really important. So, just keep that in mind as you're creating. This is, I think, one of those great lessons that just gets re-emphasized over and over and over again. So one more thing I'd like to just talk about here that I think is useful. When we start thinking about video creation, a lot of people are like, it's not me, or I can't do that, it's really hard. I just want to emphasize something that I've noticed when I look across the spectrum of creators. People that have been on the show, and this again, I'm using creators broadly. If you're making for L&D, corporate communications, for your business, for marketing, for just because you're a YouTube creator. One of the things I noticed about creators come in all shapes and sizes and have started at very different points. The beauty of what this is, or you can do, is you can learn this. Video creation is a learnable skill. You have the capacity, capability, and understanding. It takes a little work. You're going to have to put in some time, some effort, put in the reps, but this is a learnable skill. Video creation is not necessarily a talent. Now, there are talented video creators, but that's not to say that if you don't have the talent or you're less talented, that you can't make great content. I think about someone like Roger Wakefield, who started as a plumber. Excellent plumber, knew his craft, knew his business, was doing very well. Decided to pursue the path of video creation, and that helped his business. It helped his business so much that he was able to sell his business, and now he's full-time as a video creator. Now, that's obviously a unique path. Let's look at Lisa Childs. Lisa was writing documentation, working for a company. She loved to cook. She loved to create recipes and try things. She was using an Instapot, and that led to her creating an Instagram account, which then led to people saying, hey, you really should try YouTube. And she ended up making a YouTube channel, and now she's a full-time creator, is an author of several cookbooks, very successful. Now, those are on the creator side. But I think about someone like a Greg Mead. Greg has worked for ClickUp. He's done a lot of cool things in his life as an instructional designer, working in customer education. Now, one of the things that Greg has said is he's really focused in on making videos and derivatives of video, like animated GIFs, for his company. And Greg is doing awesome work, and he's someone that I watch and look at like, man, he started from not really knowing much to doing all sorts of things. You've got Edie Clark, who is someone who aspired to be a filmmaker, but now is doing a lot of different things with video, helping a lot of small businesses to be successful at learning how to use video. These creators all had very different journeys and paths to the video creation. And I just want to emphasize that regardless of where you are on your path, video is a learnable skill. And I just want to mention TechSmith is here to help. We are here to be part of that journey for you, wherever you might be on it. We hope that we're part of it for our tools. Obviously, that's good for us. But we think our tools are really powerful, especially if you're getting started. If you're doing screen-based content, every day of the week, we got you, right? But we've got our TechSmith Academy, we've got our tutorials, we've got the podcast, we've got tons of resources that we just give away because we want you to be successful. We want you to learn. And I think, again, wherever you are in your journey, you can learn. Now, some people might be saying at this point, well, Matt, you know what? I don't think it's really worth learning at this point because I'm looking at what's coming with AI. And I don't think I need to learn. I think it's going to do it for me. Gosh, why know these skills? We recently heard from Mike Parkinson, and I think this is going to be universal, and who knows? The world is unpredictable. But those who have AI will be better than those without it. And in video, particularly, where the landscape sits right now, there are some exciting and interesting things happening. However, the practicality of them coming down into your work on a day-to-day basis is still fairly limited. Now, there's lots of options, lots of opportunities there to explore, things that I think will change in the next couple of years. But right now, you will be better at video creation, even if AI comes along and does something for you, if you start to understand the principles and ideas behind what makes a great video. If you start understanding how to cut and splice things together to make them look good together, to flow. If you're good at telling a story, putting the pieces together, ChatGPT can write you the script, but you're going to want to go through it and make sure it's organized in a way that makes sense for you. It is not just predictive text predicting what you think it thinks you want to hear or what your audience wants to hear, but that you have put your touch on that across the whole spectrum. Images, same thing, right? AI is making some very cool images, but is it useful? Is it consistent? Is it going to allow you to do the things you want? I think AI, I'm super excited about the future of it. I'm not trying to be a naysayer here by any means. I'm super excited about what it can do, how it can speed up your workflows, your process, and enhance the things because I know there's things that it can do that I'm like, oh my gosh, now I can actually put my hat in the ring to do some of that stuff because it's helping me. But you've got to be able to learn the fundamentals. The core job is still there. So don't get lost in this. You can learn these things. You can do these things, and AI will be there to help you. It might make it easier, might make it faster, might make it more rich and vivid, but you are at the heart of that, and I think that's an important message, and that's probably the one we'll end on this morning. But so grateful for everybody listening. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for taking time to spend a little bit of time with me. Our goal here at the Visual Lounge is we want to help you be successful in understanding the landscape of video creation, how to do it better, how to do it faster, how to introduce new ideas from these other kind of areas that help you to maybe be more creative. We want you to be focused in on the things that are going to allow you to be more visual and help you get your work done and your job done. Because, as much as you probably are like, man, I wish I could do this all the time. Some people are very fortunate to do that. We understand you've got a job to do, and we're here to help you. So with that said, as we like to end every show, of course, if you got feedback, comments, thoughts, you can always email me at thevisuallounge@techsmith.com. You can find us on social at any of the TechSmith handles. Just hashtag the Visual Lounge, or just tag me, Matt Pierce, or if you're on Twitter at PierceMR. Happy to respond, hear your feedback, good, bad, positive, negative, whatever you want to tell me. I'm here to listen, but I'd love to connect with you as well, so feel free to do that. With that said, again, we're here to help you, and we hope you level up every single day. Thanks, everybody.